Let's discuss a few things. Um, we'll start off with a little bit of good news. Trump and Nome in the federal court case, Illinois versus Nome, lost hands down, majoritively on the APA, the Procedures Act. I brought up a couple of times where um, we had a big cleanup cycle after Nixon. We had to clean up governance. We had to put in more checks and balances. And one of the bigger things we did, along with the War Powers Act, which obviously isn't working really well, that needs to be updated again, is we did the Administration Procedures Act. And basically, the big takeaway from the American Procedures Act is the government, especially the executive branch, who's the day-to-day operator of government, they cannot be arbitrary and capricious in their actions. If they are arbitrary and capricious in their actions, that usually ends up making the regulation or the rule they tried to pass invalid. So what had happened is Nome laid down a dictum, and a dictum is not rulemaking, because really what the APA is all about is the structure of rulemaking in the federal government. Okay. And what the APA says is you actually have to go through the process. You can't just willy-nilly make declarations and it automatically becomes rule, regulation, or statute. You can't enforce something unless you went through the rulemaking process. The judge wasn't happy in the case. That was very clear. The judge just saw a lot of short circuiting of the standing law in the APA. He saw the DOJ and DHS not being forthright in their presentation of information to the court. And this was another complete loss for dear leader Pornstar Humber. That's about the only good news I read today. Oh no, that's not true. I did read that scientists in Britain may think they have solved Huntington's disease. It's basically your brain falling apart. They think they've got a treatment for it, which is absolutely amazing. Other than that, yeah, today was a dark day, followed by a very, very dark weekend, where the United States of America, under a 34 count convicted felon, an adjudicated rapist, and a suspected pedophile, they're throwing every norm out the window. And the speed in which they're going to do it now, I think what Ross Voigt understands now is, even though they tried to move incredibly fast, and they did, and they wrecked things. Just go back to Doge and the layoffs. I mean, they purposely wrecked things. They realized in 2025. Well, let's go back up. They realized in the first term they were flat-footed, and they were never going to get around the courts and get around Congress and dupe the American people if they did the normal pace of procedure in the federal government. So when 2025 hit, they bum rushed the country. I think 2026 is going to be another acceleration in the grift, in the corruption, in the absence of rulemaking, because they know they got a lot of weight. They eventually lose in court. This is what 2025 taught dear leader Miller, Trump, Bannon, the whole evil Nazified crowd. Moving fast gets a little shit done. Like they were able to steal all the data they wanted to steal with Doge. Because Doge wasn't about efficiency, it wasn't about saving money. It was about stealing the data in the government and handing it to people so they can manipulate the data, harvest the data, um, do what we do in data engineering, map it to other things. They want to know everything and everything about anybody they can get their hands on so they can use whatever tad of information they can gather on somebody, they can use it against them. I want to make it like really super clear. The government under Dear Leader Pornstar Humper treats every American as the enemy. Unless you are currently that moment doing something transactional for Dear Leader, you are the enemy of this regime, of this nationalist regime. Everything that's happening is happening because Dear Leader just isn't in the Epstein files. He's practically is the Epstein files. It's in the files over 1,500 times. I looked at the repository myself. I couldn't believe the search. So this weekend, everybody knows we started a hemispheric war, World War III-ish. That's what I'm calling it. World War III-ish has started. And we better be prepared. I mean, individually be prepared for what's the future is going to be, the short to the midterm future, because Americans are already poor. America is already broke, $37 trillion in debt. And when we got Lindsey Graham walking around today in a Make Iran Great Again hat, and then the night before, Lindsey Graham on Air Force One, literally sitting there like he's got an erection while he's high on fucking whippets, just screaming at reporters how Cuba is next. Okay, they mean exactly what they're they're putting out there. There's no, don't think there's any like minimization of their speech. If they said they're going to invade Cuba, expect Cuba to be invaded in the next couple of weeks. Okay. Because the list right now, after Venezuela, Venezuela was simply the first domino. There are many dominoes already lined up. And those dominoes are Cuba, Panama, Mexico, Greenland, Colombia, and Canada. Um, the occupation, just like the occupation of Iraq was a disaster, the occupation of Venezuela is already a fucking joke. I know I've recommended to y'all a couple of times before, but please subscribe, follow, whatever, either here on Substack or over on YouTube. Mr. Global, Matt Rudolph. I put this up in notes last night or early yesterday evening. I was waiting for him to say it because I already knew it. I already knew the story. Venezuela showed up at an OPEC meeting under Maduro years and years ago. And they just showed up because I think the way it works is the number of barrels is basically your voting position in OPEC. So to knock Saudi Arabia and Russian down a peg, Venezuela shows up to the OPEC meeting and goes, "This is our new proven reserves." And that overnight proven reserves was a multiple of what the U.S. companies that were working in Venezuela pumping the oil. Venezuela just took their number and multiplied it by 2 or 3, giving him more power in OPEC. Okay. So the Venezuelan number, the amount of reserves, is a lie. Ergo, dear leader Pornstar Humper on the train saying, "Oh, we're going to make $1 trillion in Venezuela." because there's trillions of assets for us to take. Okay. That's a lie. So I'm using my words very carefully tonight because we're in a very serious, dire straight situation here. He didn't fib. He didn't massage policy speech. He abjectly lied. Okay. I knew years ago, and I'm not Matt Rudolph. I've never worked in the oil industry. I just like to read. And I read a lot of news. I read a lot of books and I read a lot of papers, read a lot of reports. Okay. And I knew years ago that Venezuela lied their ass off because they wanted more dominance in the global energy space. So they simply just made up numbers. So whatever graph you see and whatever number and valuation, whether it's in available, what is it, mega barrels or gigabarrels or annual outputs from a country, yada yada yada, and you look at Venezuela's numbers, those Venezuelan numbers are a lie. They have been lies for many years now. Does Venezuela have a lot of oil? Yeah, yeah. They're pretty much the Saudi Arabia of South America. Okay. But do they have the reserves they claim to have? No, Maduro just cooked the books. That's all he did. Okay. Now, many outlets around internet news sites and everything, and again, Mr. Global said this too, and this is something again I already knew that U.S. oil companies have spent what $400+ billion activating Canada um, in their energy systems and getting that flowing to market. They just spent a good part of a decade, a little more, investing all their money in Canada because that was the government they could work with. Because Chevron and whoever else is the big players, I even know the real names of whatever it's Marathon or whoever the big drilling companies are. They're not going to go to a country where there's no surety, security, or guarantee. Okay? There's a reason why U.S. oil companies went to Canada and not Venezuela, because Canada gave them contract guarantees. It's safe to work in Canada because right now, if they were to try to like send American workers down to Venezuela, you would need a bodyguard with an M16 or an M4 for every worker you had on the ground, just to make sure that they weren't kidnapped and killed. Okay, so it's absurd knowing the history and knowing how much the Canadian market and the Canadian sourcing was really the emphasis over the last many years. But suddenly they're going to give up all that investment, lose track of what they're doing, making money out of Canada, making money out of the United States, making money out of Mexico, all countries with guarantees, all countries with securities. Okay, it gets a little more dicey in Mexico because of the gangs and the cartels, but uh, it's still doable. Okay, it's just simply not doable in Venezuela in the short term. So when Trump's on the plane, just throwing numbers because he just pulled it out of his ass. Oh, we're going to make $1 trillion. Oh my God, it's going to be $1 trillion. You said billions? No, no, it's going to be trillions. Like within less than a minute and a half, he went from a trillion, to trillions. That's an abject lie. There's no fucking way you're getting $1 trillion worth of oil product, even if you include the metals like gold, nickel. They got a bunch of stuff down there, different varieties depending on what metal you're talking about or what raw mineral you're talking about. Um, but he's talking about oil, and he's using the big T word, trillion. There's no truth to that. None. Zero. Oh, and even if there was some truth to this, you've got a delay to rebuild all the infrastructure that's decayed over the years under the um, socialist communist regimes of Chavez and Maduro. I want to make this point. I know Maduro's a fucking asshole. You don't have to remind me. Okay. He's a fucking criminal. He's always been a criminal. He's always been a despot. No shit. Half the sovereign countries in this world are run by the same type of asshole like Maduro. Are we going to invade every single fucking one at the middle class expense? Because remember, they don't pay any taxes. Trump and his cabinet don't pay any taxes. They insured that with the big, beautiful bill. The tax burden is now exclusively on the working middle class and the working poor. So they don't pay taxes anyway. So why do they give a shit on this little parade they're going to start? They're going to start bombing Iran, probably with Israel. We're going to get directly involved in the Gaza war. Okay, even more directly than we are now, because we have boots on the ground. We have equipment on the ground. We have intelligence flights. Okay, we have satellite data that nobody else has. So we're going to start bombing Iran. And that's going to happen in days to weeks. We're going to invade Cuba and overthrow that government. That's weeks away. The problem is Trump and his crew, and you see it in their faces, you see it in their body languages. Like Lutnick, Graham, and Trump standing in the little uh, walkway of Air Force One talking, and watching their body language and watching their facial expressions and listening to the way they talk. Now, let's leave out for a fact that Trump, in one impromptu press conference, mispronounced 20 fucking words. Okay, I don't know. I'm not a doctor. I don't know if that's aphasia. I don't know if that's front lobal dementia. I don't know. If anybody's a doctor, let me know. But he's showing display of aged disabilities. Okay, let's leave that aside for anything, and let's just talk about how giddy they are, violating international law, claiming Trump is 100% immune because he's a sovereign leader, but nobody else is. And the danger, like I said before, the danger here is multifaceted. One danger that we have is we've just told the world that it's okay to seize other leaders as long as you can make up a stupid excuse. Because here's the thing that really bugs me. Maduro was not the only guy with an arrest warrant from the DOJ. He wasn't the only guy with a greater than $10 million bounty on his head. Okay. In fact, there was six of them. I think it was six, all indicted, all leaders in Venezuela. We arrested one, left all the rest of them behind. And Maduro's number two, which is Maduro twin. She is a 100% disciple of Maduro. She is now in charge of Venezuela. So what policy did you affect if you left Maduro's regime and Maduro's ideology and Maduro's socialist communism in place? How is this a victory? Because no matter what happens, in dear leader's eyes, this is the greatest victory of all time. No matter what he does, it's the greatest victory of all time. It's the most patriotic mission that ever occurred. No, I think the most patriotic mission doesn't even come close to any of these tourism wars. You want an act of patriotism in war? Go back to the Revolutionary War. Okay, the guys freezing at Valley Forge. Our troops hooking up with General Lafayette and the French to defeat the British. That's some patriotic shit right there. Storming Normandy to free Europe. That's some fucking honorable shit right there. The rest of this shit, he lost me. Okay. But they're giddy. They're emotional. They're worked up. They're excited. I mean, again, Lindsey Graham was literally standing there like he had just done whippets, some meth, and he was standing there with a chubby. He was so excited about the fact that he has the possibility of invading Cuba. He was literally standing there with an erection. Ah, Cuba, you're next. Ah. And I'm like, you manic psychopaths. Like, seriously, what possible threat is Cuba to the United States of America? What could they do? Throw a coconut at us? Come on. Come on. Yeah, we don't like having asshole neighbors. Nobody does. That's why I'm really glad, in this house, I've mostly have had really good neighbors directly around my house, except one fucking asshole. And I hate her beyond all reaches of the universe. Um, but like literally 90% of my neighbors are not just good neighbors, they're good people, and I like living next to them. So we all want good neighbors. I understand that. But how you get to have good neighbors is you are a good neighbor yourself. Okay. It's really ridiculous, really fucking ridiculous to sit there and go, we are going to establish the hemisphere order and we are going to determine who leads what countries. And we're going to do it by lying to you. There's no $1 trillion to be made out of Venezuela. Even if you wanted to do something in Venezuela, it's going to be 5 to 7 years minimum, could be as long as 10 years before you literally get a barrel of oil exported out on a ship out of Venezuela to somewhere on the world market. Okay. He's telling you he's already made, he already knows he's going to make $1 trillion and he's going to make that $1 trillion overnight. That's a lie. That's an abject lie. And after reading the news and listening to Mr. Global and hitting up a few policy sites, last night when I was laying on the couch, I put the chance of getting 1 barrel of oil out of Venezuela in the next 5 years at 0%. Meanwhile, we told China, go ahead and invade Taiwan, kidnap the leader of Taiwan. It's completely legal. It's doable. It's justifiable. North Korea, Kim Jong Un sends commandos down to South Korea. They kidnap the South Korean president. All good. All good, according to dear leader porn star Humper and his nationalist regime. If Putin kidnaps Zelensky, fair game. That's the rule. That's the global rule that was just established by Rubio, Trump, Graham, and the rest of the Nazified clown show. This is going to cost us. Now, I want to preface this because I saw another content creator who I like. She does a really good job. She talks a lot about farming, a lot about rural America, and that's something that's close to me, growing up in farmland in New England. Um, she got pretty hostile the other day about negative content creation, and I guess I don't want to be an influencer. God forbid, no. But I do create content. That's just objectively true. And we're all supposed to just talk about the pure policy, and we're not supposed to get emotional or mad or work anybody up or anything. I'm like, no, this is a great time to get pissed. I get pissed anytime I'm lied to. Okay, I don't like any of the crap that that is delivered to us when it's simply a political fantasy, a political myth meant as distraction. And Venezuela is a distraction. Cuba will be the next distraction. Greenland will be the distraction after that. Okay. This will all come out of your pocket. Will all come out of your city budgets, your school budgets, your road budgets, your police budgets, your fire budgets, your highway budgets, your bridge repair budget. You're reinforcing the seaports in Virginia and Georgia and out here, in Washington and California. All that money is going to be spent overseas. Exactly what they complained about as MAGA from the very beginning. Step fucking one with MAGA was hating on Dick Cheney, hating on the military adventurism, hating on the spending the money overseas. Now they announced they're going to do it in spades, and they just passed the tax law that makes sure that they don't have to pay a dime. Not a single bank CEO is going to pay a dime toward Venezuela, Cuba, Panama, Greenland, Canada, Mexico, Colombia. Okay. And this is a real huge question here. Is Dear Leader and is Graham going to back him? Funny thing, Bo Bird and Marjorie Taylor Greene won't anymore. That's funny. That's funny. But Graham will back him until he dies. Okay. Trump goes, "Where's my $1 trillion worth of oil out of Venezuela?" The oil companies tell him the facts and go, "There is no $1 trillion to come out of Venezuela. It's not worth our time to go into Venezuela. You've given us no guarantees of security that makes it reasonable to go to Venezuela. We're staying in the United States and Canada. That's where we're going to operate from. We don't want to go to Venezuela." Will the nationalist regime then turn around and seize Chevron and force it to go into Venezuela? I see that as not a high possibility, but I see that as a possibility simply because they're so manic. Now, I am going to tell you some things that a lot of people are not going to want to hear, and I'm telling you from somebody who fought the drug war. You do not want to invade Mexico. Let me repeat that. You do not want to invade Mexico unless you want a war inside the United States of America. Because if you think you can contain the war to Mexico only, that's another lie. Okay. The cartels will be driving pickup trucks full of explosives into grocery stores and detonating bombs within the first week or two after we start invading Mexico. And remember, we have a hot presence in Mexico. How many of you saw the movies Sicario with Benicio del Toro and Thanos there, the handsome guy? His dad was gorgeous, by the way. Boy, his dad was a beautiful guy. Um, Sicario is a drama, sure. It's a movie, so don't take it too truthfully. But in general, but in general, yes, we have a hot presence like it's shown in Sicario. Like the funniest scene when the first time I saw it, I actually laughed because I knew it was true. When they got into the famous, it's all over YouTube. Everybody loves this clip. The border scene with the spectacle man from the CIA, and they take down the cartel hitmen that are chasing them or following them to get the prisoner they're taken back to the United States. Um, and they whack all the cartel members. And the one guy says as they get into the back of the SUV to exfil out, um, he goes, "Man, this is going to make every paper in America." And the other guy looks at him and goes, "No, this isn't even going to uh, make the papers on the border. Nobody cares. Nobody gives a fuck." Because yeah, firefights have occurred in the past. Nobody gives a shit unless they happen in a shopping mall in white suburban America. Frankly, America, you don't give a shit. Okay, so we have a hot presence, and that includes not just the DEA and FBI. It also includes the Army, and it has included the Army for years. Military police, CID, Green Berets. Yeah, all that part's real. Okay. But what we're going after is very specific targets in law enforcement. We're not starting a war. Okay. And that's one thing we've tried not to do. We'll take down a target. That's not a problem. But just declare open warfare in Mexico, that will be a disaster that will be devastating to the United States. No, I literally don't know how he thinks he can. If you hear some background noise, my wife's in the kitchen in the other room. Sorry about that. Um, I don't know how he keeps up the deployment tempo, the op tempo. I don't know how he plans on doing that after Venezuela, Cuba, down the entire list. I don't know how he plans on doing that. Okay. We had a super hot op tempo in Iraq and Afghanistan. Got a lot of GIs injured, killed, suicidal, stressed out. The whole works. Every negative you can get from having too high of a op tempo, and it wasn't my opinion that we had too high of an op tempo. That was my father-in-law, the retired Green Beret Command Sergeant Major. He was saying for years this op tempo is too high. You're gonna burn out every trooper you got. Okay, and he should know. He was on the front lines for shit 22 years. Um, Actually, a little longer than that before he went to command staff. Where I met him in West Germany. Um, I don't know how they keep up. I don't know how they control these countries after we topple the leadership. I don't know how Rubio stands back at 1,000 yards and go, oh, we're just going to coerce them into becoming the Jeffersonian democracy. They don't want a Jeffersonian democracy. They want a corrupt regime which is going to give a cut to dear leader Pornstar Humper and his crew. That's what they're looking for. They're not looking for a Jeffersonian democracy in Venezuela. They're looking for a corrupt regime that will play ball with Donald Trump. Okay. And I'm going to say this ad nauseum tonight. We invaded Venezuela because Donald J. Trump is the fucking Epstein files. Sure, Maduro had a warrant. Sure, Maduro's an asshole. Is that the reason we invaded Venezuela? No, it was not. That was the Epstein files. And I did the Google Trends before I jumped on, and the biggest search in the last 7 days was the kicker who got the what was it, a 63-yard or a 67-yard field goal, which that's pretty amazing. I'm not even a football fan. I do like college football. And I go to Stanford games with my friend a lot. Um, that's a cool sports story for sure. But Epstein's not even in the top 25 right now on Google. In fact, I thought about writing a PowerShell script and a Python script that would do the same thing. That would simply every minute go up and search for Jeffrey Epstein to get and pass out the code to y'all, and have you run it on your laptop or your workstation, and just sit there in the background, call up Epstein file searches, um, infinitum to put the attention of the Google algorithm back on the Epstein files. Um, our entire government, and I'm not being hyperbolic here, our entire government is functioning for one purpose: to prevent the arrest of a suspected pedophile who's all over the Epstein files. Oh, and did you see how they perp walked Maduro? That's not the judge. The federal judges aren't going to like that, especially the appellate division. It's not going to like that. The federal agents have been told for years to knock off potentially poisoning a jury with these very publicized perp walks. Okay. They frog marched that motherfucker all over New York City. They paraded him in armored vehicles round and around the city in the longest route possible. Take him to the court. Because you know why? We need to get it out there. We need more social media videos. And this is the fucked up thing. In the war room where they're all doing their playgirl, gay man fashion poses. Oh, we're invading. Oh, look at the screen. Behind Hegseth's shoulder is Twitter. Their biggest concern was how Twitter was reacting to the invasion. We're being governed by social media. And social media now is the soothsayer to tell us whether or not we're doing things correctly. It isn't leadership. It isn't policy. It isn't law. It isn't rule. Yeah, it's water. I love that. And it is pathetic. Yes. am home. Yeah, it's totally pathetic. Like that's one thing that just is eating at my wife. She's like, "Why the hell are we being governed via social media?" If you think Zuck and Musk and now Ellison should be communicating, should be the platforms we communicate through government to the people, you're an idiot. We should not be doing that at all. 0, 0, 0, 0. We should not be doing that because they're not just making announcements or echoing press releases. They're making policy statements on Twitter, on True Social. You know, invading Mexico will be an utter disaster for the home front, the home soil for America. There's no way we can contain the war in Mexico. None. Zero. I hope Arizona and Texas like truck bombs because there'll be many of them being detonated in those states in the first few weeks after we invade Mexico. And that isn't the worst scenario in this parade throughout the hemisphere and the hemispheric war that is now the distraction to the Epstein files. Did you see the memes today? This is our hemisphere. Trump has declared ownership over the entire hemisphere. And I had a friend text me a couple hours ago. We were cops together back in the day. He's a lawyer now. Um, he just texted me and he goes, "Hey, you called it months ago." He says, you were right. Z, Putin, and Trump are going to carve up the world into thirds and divide it up and conquer it." He goes, "You are absolutely right." I'm going, "Yeah, it's happening." And he literally, I'm looking at the meme right now. This is our hemisphere with Trump standing at the lectern. This is what happens when you don't follow the Constitution for decades. This is what happens when you have fools in Congress, including Democrats. I want to make that perfectly clear. All but one Democrat voted for the authorized use of military force, which was the non war declaration. So we would give tax breaks to wealthy people and send working class sons and daughters to Iraq, Afghanistan, Djibouti, Somalia, Mali, Chad, Libya, Turkmenistan, Waziristan, Syria, um, and other places, and they get to die. The oligarchs got a tax break. Their kids got to go to graduate school. Our kids went to a foreign war, which we did not win, not even close, and they got maimed and killed. Okay. Now, why do I bring that up? Because if you thought Iraq was bad, and it was, and I warned you it was bad, I was over in my own Facebook page, my Groovy Libertarian for President page. Okay, I told you right from the start, Iraq is going to be a nightmare. It's going to be the world's quickest victory against a substantial army. Okay, that's going to take weeks. The real fight is going to try to be holding the country, and that's going to take years, and it ended up being a 20-year war. Okay, Iraq was horrible. It was a complete waste of time and money. Okay, now let me tell you what's going to happen when we go to Colombia. Colombia is the closest ally in South America the United States have. It is beyond the closest military ally we have in South America. Who trained the Colombian army? Why is the Colombian army set up like the American 7th Army Division Light, 101st Airborne, and the smaller mobile units? Because that's the way we fucking trained them. Okay. Their infantry was taught by our infantry, including our Green Berets. Their military intelligence were taught by the chief warrant officers and our military intelligence. Their MPs were taught by our MPs. Think of Colombia as the Germany of South America. Okay. So they have one of the best equipped, best trained, most mature military systems outside the United States and Canada and South Korea, because those three are probably the best. Not that Germany or Italy are slouches, they're not, but Korea, Canada, and United States are head and shoulders above the rest. Um, like the Rock, the Republican of Korea Army, they're one of the hardest core fuckers you'll ever meet in your life. Okay, these guys are hardcore. They're well trained, they're well financed, they're extremely well armed. Okay. Um, and I really doubt, like in Iraq, we had allied backup. Okay. Like our Green Berets, our SEALs, our Delta guys, our Ranger teams, our Ranger companies, worked with GSG 9 from Germany, their special forces. They worked with SAS and SBS out of Britain. Okay. SCS, OG special forces. Hell, they created it. Okay. Is the SAS or the SBS going to be invading Mexico or Colombia with us? No. Is the German president going to allow GSG 9 to back us up in Colombia? No. That's not even in the cards. That's not going to fucking happen. When we hit Colombia, we are going to take multiples of the casualties we did in Iraq. Okay, because we won't be fighting. Well, yeah, that's what they're looking for. Yeah, they're going to turn South America into the new Middle East. That, that's the purpose. Yes, turn South America into the Middle East so we can distract that the sitting president of the United States of America, and who should be the leader of the free world, is a suspected pedophile, a adjudicated rapist, and a convicted felon, and a street gang leader. If you've read my writings, he operates like a street gang leader. His crew is a street gang. In all form and practice, they are a street gang. It's hard to tell his crew from the gangs we went after in Europe and on the West Coast here in America back in the 80s and the 90s. So, yes, they are turning South America into a war zone for destruction. Okay. And if we are actually dumb enough and Congress capitulates because they are all corrupt, lazy bastards who do not deserve their job. Okay. In fact, some of the right wingers deserve their job more right now than the Democrats do. Kular and Wasserman Schultz are not just backing up the invasion of Venezuela, they're praising it. Democrats are praising the invasion of Venezuela. As we spend money to the point where we're going to collapse the dollar, we're going to end up in a dollar crisis after this shit. Okay. The Democrats are going to look at the tea leaves, they're going to look at the political calculus, and they're going to concentrate on healthcare because healthcare has the biggest chance of getting them reelected because that's the only thing they care about. I'm not saying every single politician in Congress, I'm saying like almost every single one. They don't care about anything other than getting reelected because it's a cushy job with great benefits and a great retirement. And they get to line their pockets through insider training by bumping up their portfolios with stuff they hear in the committee meetings. They don't care about Venezuela. They don't care about you. They care about getting reelected. So they're going to concentrate on healthcare, not Venezuela. Even after we invade Cuba in the next couple of weeks to couple of months, the Democrats aren't going to put up a big fight against this at all. Some are going to throw fits. Some of them are going to have real cogent criticisms, in legal determinations to show that what they're actually doing wrong. But most of this is going to be empty protest and a focus on getting reelected in the midterms. So Venezuela is a goner. There's no pulling back out of that. And at this point, I don't even think there's a way to stop the invasion of Cuba and the overthrow of the Cuban government. Yeah, Raul's still there, right? Raul Castro, he's still in charge of that little commie. Again, he's a commie. Who gives a shit? Again, what is he going to go through? Throw a 1957 Chevy part at me they refurbed? Throw a coconut at me? Oh, Cuba is so dangerous. Um, the Democrats aren't going to do anything when they invade Cuba either. They may have something to say when we start lining up against Greenland because it will destroy NATO. It will shock the markets, both in the United States and in Europe. Um, it's funny, all these wealthy people, all they want is more money. Their drug is that they're addicted to money. They're addicted to wealth. They're addicted to the privilege that their level of money gives them. Okay. But you go ahead and you go after Greenland and start a NATO conflict, the markets are going to lose thousands of points the day after we use any force against Greenland. Everyone's life savings are going to take a hit. They all want to be wealthy, but they all want to do stupid shit that will make us all poor. So well before we get into a dollar crisis, and what's going to lead to a dollar crisis is the markets are going to get so disrupted because um, wars don't mean prosperity. War is murder and destruction. If you think you're going to get a utopia out of a war because you willed it and it's going to appear tomorrow morning, um, you're a con artist. And they're literally saying, I mean, Graham, Lutnick, Rubio, Trump, they're literally saying, well, if you don't use your resources the way we want you to use our resources, and you don't use the companies we tell you to use get those resources, we will take them. They're literally making those statements in unequivocal terms. If you have resources, we are going to take them unless you give it to us and sell it to us anyways. That's the talking point now on Fox News. Greenland must be sold to Trump immediately. No, and they said Trump, by the way. They didn't say sell it to the United States of America. They repeat the same line. They have to sell it to Trump. Okay, and I warned you about that. The Kennedy Center is now the Trump Kennedy Center. Sometime this year, it will be the Trump not Kennedy Center. Then he's going to turn around just like every other dictator in the 20th century did. And he's going to turn around and say, that Trump Center, that's mine. That's my personal property. Franco did it. Ceausescu did it. Amin did it. It's not out of the realm of possibility. This dictator will do it. So yeah, we go into Colombia. We're talking massive military casualties on our side. Not to mention what we'll have to do to Colombia to make any inroads toward a military victory in that country. The slaughter will be far worse than any of the modern wars. You'd have to go back to World War II, where it was militarily acceptable to level entire cities. What was in the invasion, Normandy invasion, Saint-Méry-Glis? We took it, we lost it. Then the bombers showed up, we leveled the city, and then we took back the ashes. We leveled. We absolutely, British and American pilots and their command literally firebombed and leveled Dresden and half of Tokyo, knowing what we were doing, killing civilians. The British were going to bomb Dresden whether we agreed to do it or not because they wanted revenge for Coventry. So we literally loaded up phosphorus bombs. You know, phosphorus, you just have to expose it to the air. It self ignites. Phosphorus will burn in any oxygen environment. As long as it has any access to oxygen, phosphorus will ignite. It's very, very dangerous chemicals. It's like cesium. Cesium's another one. Raw cesium, raw sodium, phosphorus. You got to be careful with that shit. That's why they always store it in mineral oil because you can't let the oxygen get in contact with the metal, or you get a boom boom, or you definitely get a chemical fire. Um, so, just to recap the whole hemispheric war, all based on a lie, all based to keep dear leader porn star Humper out of federal court for being a child molesting rapist, a pedophile, and to cover up his actions with E. Jean Carroll, cover up his actions and his business convictions. This has nothing to do with what they're telling you it's about. Because it can't be about the oil when there's nobody willing to go down to Venezuela and actually work the system and bring the oil industry back online. It's literally not multiple sources. It's literally not advantageous for American oil companies to go to Venezuela. Because what are they going to do? Bring millions of barrels online from Venezuela and ruin their investment they just spent the last 10 to 12 years in Canada building? They're going to undercut their Canadian investments so they can do Trump's bidding in Venezuela? That's not a reasonable outcome. That's sort of a fantasy, sort of a real bullshit fantasy. Okay. So before I move on to the next topic, start preparing yourself, your friends, your family. The times are about to get rough. Think really rough, like the oil embargoes in the 70s, the mortgage crisis, and COVID lockdowns, but all wrapped into one. Okay. Start making plans for your own safety and your own well-being. That's what I'm saying. I'm making investments. Like I just bought a super expensive portable giant battery for when the power grid goes down, and I can recharge that battery off solar panels or my own solar panels. I could reroute the electricity and fire it up from my own, or I could buy the separate little field panels and recharge the battery. I'm making real plans for when infrastructure starts to fail. Because if they're only concerned with a hemispheric invasion to cover up the fact that we have a sitting pedophile in the White House, the damage they're willing to do is literally immeasurable. And you should be prepared for that. And what was the word for 2025? I kept telling y'all perseverance. I'm going to keep that word as the word of the year for 2026. Be prepared to persevere, whatever it takes. Build the relationships you need, build the friendships, build your neighborly connections. You know, there's a couple of people I know who they are in my neighborhood, always have. Like one of my old neighbors used to be ex-CIA and Secret Service. So I definitely hooked up with him early on. Some city police, some federal agents live in my neighborhood. They know me. I know them. You know, so if, like our city collapses, we don't have a police department. We could pretty much police our own neighborhood. That sort of stuff. But be prepared. Be prepared to take a financial hit. Be prepared to go through some stressful times because it's coming. Yeah. Dear leader, Pornstar Humper and his cabinet and his all his acolytes and sycophants, they don't care about America. They don't care about Americans. They literally do not give a fuck. You have to be prepared for that. Just had that conversation with my eldest son. Be prepared for when he goes, Dad, is this what's going to really happen? And I was like, very plainly, yes. That ugly scenario you just brought up as a possibility, there's a good chance that's going to happen. Be prepared. Be prepared, including building up self-fortitude, moral fortitude, and perseverance in oneself, and be prepared to carry through the tough times. And what I keep looking back is my old great aunt Pearl. I've talked about her a couple of times. She lived through the Great Depression. What a pip. If she can make it, we can make it. Okay. Approaching the hour, so let me wrap up the other topic I wanted to talk about today is, oh my God, RFK hates your children. He's literally trying to convince parents to uh, put their children at risk. They changed the vaccination schedule and amount of vaccines, massively cut it back. This is a direct, and this is the point I want to make right out the gate on RFK. The fucking drug addict, steroid abusing, brainworm fucking asshole. His recommendations today, go directly against even the Texas State Department of Health. Every state in New England, Illinois, Washington, Hawaii, California all came out and said that's not a proper action to take. Okay. So the federal government is now working directly against the departments of health of almost every state in the union. And they're selling uh, uh, a canard to tell you this is the way to make your family healthy. Now, the funny thing is they're reducing the vaccination schedule in humans. Their next thing is they want to do it in animals, including our cattle and our farm animals. Okay. You do not want to reduce vaccinations in herd medications, in herd medicine. You do not want to do that. That's going to cost farmers everything they've got. I can see Robert Kennedy or his affiliate, the idiot in was that Biles in Department of Ag. I could totally see him saying, "Oh, don't vaccinate your cattle. Don't worry about the anthrax program out of the Department of Agriculture," and then we'll end up with another huge anthrax outbreak in Nebraska. And if you you think beef's going to be expensive now, wait till we have another disease outbreak. Because the reason why your eggs were so damn high is we had to cull the chickens because of bird flu. Okay. And then what did Robert Kennedy Jr. said? Oh, we can't inoculate the chickens because, I'm a heroin addict. Because that's the level of scientific effort they're putting into it. Dr. Oz sends wellness lung therapies, which are totally bogus, on his iHerb website he's invested in. They're literally selling COVID wellness products while telling you don't listen to the doctors about COVID. Now they're going to do it with medicines. Now they're going to do it with animal immunization programs. And it's going to be a fucking disaster. Patricia asked, is there a Department of Ag department anymore? Yes, there is. They fired a lot of people. It wasn't what it was under the previous administrations, but yes, it's still there. Absolutely still there. The line RFK and Dr. Oz are going down is so fraudulent, so stupid. And I probably on social media and on my newsfeed, I probably follow 10, 12 doctors. There isn't a doctor that agrees with RFK who isn't in the orbit of RFK involved in the fraud. Like one of the ones I'll recommend here on Substack is Dr. Andrea Love. Okay. Another one is Dr. Jen Goodler. She's an OBGYN. Dr. Love is a MPH, a researcher. Okay. The doctors are saying one thing, completely opposite of what RFK is saying. And I want to reinforce this point. RFK is literally going against the Department of Health of the state of Texas, who's going through some of the worst disease outbreaks of our current times. They got kids dying. Measles, pertussis. I had whooping cough as a kid. Every time I say the word or someone brings up the word whooping cough, I start playing a movie in my head. I'm a kid at my old parents' house, the one I was only at a short time. I was a little kid. That was in East Springfield, Massachusetts. And as I'm talking to you, my brain movie's playing. My dad is holding me. I'm literally coughing. I cannot breathe. Whooping cough is so bad in Massachusetts and New England, they ran out of ambulances. So the Springfield dispatcher sent a cop car to my house to pick me and my dad up and rush us to Memorial Hospital in Springfield because I was basically turning blue. I'm picturing in my head right now being in the back of that police car with the lights and sirens on in the old 1971 Chrysler patrol car, the huge back seat. My dad's holding me, rubbing my chest, trying to get me to take any breath I can. And I'm struggling. I'm struggling. Okay. Now I see the emergency room in my head. I see the emergency room treatment room. The doctors are around me. Okay. Add that to when I was in Shriners Hospital for crippled children when I was growing up. I never saw anybody in the iron lung, but the iron lung was in one of the back rooms where they kept a lot of the supplies and spare equipment. I saw the iron lung. They'd wheel me by to take me to the whirlpool to give me a hot bath before I had to stretch and do my muscle exercises and stuff. And every time the nurse, like Nurse Susan, I still remember her face just popped up in my head from 50 years ago, 55 years ago. Um, they wheel me by and I see the iron lung in there. That's why I think that's why I'm so reactive to RFK. One, I've read books. Like when COVID started, I mean, the big title that I'll recommend to you. This is fictional. It's by Albert Camus, but it's one of the best books ever written. It's The Plague by Albert Camus. Okay. I read that twice during COVID. Then I went back and found PDFs of old history books talking about the smallpox 200 years ago in multiple countries, in Europe and Russia and the United States and Canada, how smallpox was just a nightmare disease and how they had to convince people to get inoculated or the old type inoculation where they just prick you with a live agent. And famous people had to get inoculated to convince other people to do it, like Catherine, the ruler of Russia. She did the whole thing in public on the steps of the palace to show everybody, hey, listen, this is what we got to do, or we're all going to get bumpy skin and half of us are going to die. So history is against RFK. Medicine is against RFK. Okay. The data is against RFK. But RFK just told you don't take care of your children. Why? MAGA and Maha do not give a fuck about anybody except MAGA and Maha leaders who are running the con. Because every time they tell you don't get your COVID vaccine, some moron goes to iHerb.com and buys a fake medical wellness bullshit pretending to be a medical solution, and they buy it, and Dr. Oz makes money. That's why they're telling you the lies. Why does Dear Leader Pornstar Humper tell you the lies? Because he doesn't want to go to prison. He made $3.2 billion in 1 year in 2025. And he really likes being a tyrant and a dictator. They're lying to you because it is personally profitable to them to lie. And they don't care what happens to you or your family. A death toll is not a problem for these people. It's never a problem with authoritarians. It's an end. Casualties and unnecessary deaths are an ends to a means with this type of persona. In the very, very evil clown show that's in Trump's orbit, they're all like that. There isn't a single sane person who actually gives a shit about anybody but themselves and their daddy. Yes, they call Dear Leader daddy. That's so fucked up and sick. They do it. There isn't one rational person in Trump's orbit. Not a one. And the few remaining people that are rational, like Powell at the Fed, Trump wants to fire because he won't do his bidding. Even if his bidding, whether it's invading Venezuela and a list of other countries in this hemisphere, or fucking with the financial rates until they blow up the economy, they don't care. As long as he thinks he's winning, that's all that matters. Literally nothing else matters in these guys' minds. So that's why they told you don't take care of your kid. Okay. It's okay if your kid dies of whooping cough. It's okay if your kid gets maimed with measles or chicken pox. I mean, the outcomes they're telling you, like they keep restating things that are abject lies about these diseases. There are mortality rates and injury rates with every single fucking thing we vaccinate for. That's why we have vaccination programs for those diseases. And the data supports it. Like one of the biggest lies RFK has told recently is the data over time lie that he tried to like, and I love the way he talks, like, he's got a potato in his mouth and he has a head injury. Well, no, well, I know, all the measles went away, no, because of this thing, and no, and then this magical mystery thing, and no, I'm always right. Then you go to the CDC, or you go to Mayo Clinic, or go to the Kaiser Foundation, the real fucking doctors, and you look at the number of deaths caused by disease A, B, C, D, E, F, G over time, and you look at things like measles. What year did the measles vaccine come out? This is Joe Rogan's folly. Well, I didn't see anybody dying from measles when I'm a kid. Joe Rogan, you fucking asshole. You're not that far off of my age, you stupid cunt. The reason we did not see people dying from smallpox and measles and diphtheria is because we were vaccinated for it before we even went to school. And I have to confess, yeah, I watched some Rogan back in the day because he had some cool guests of people I like, especially the scientists. But I stopped watching him years ago because I finally found out he was fucktarded. Rogan has to be one of the dumbest motherfuckers with a microphone. He's actually dumber than Trump. Now, I don't know if he's just like seriously low IQ because that's the way he's been since he's a kid, or he just took too many punches and kicks to the head. Okay. He does throw a massive roundhouse kick, though, a good back kick. I've seen his workouts. But nobody should be listening about politics, medicine, or anything else because anything RFK says, you're going to see in a couple of days Joe Rogan repeating in his own way. Like RFK said, oh, the measles started going away without the vaccine. That's simply not true. The data tells the complete opposite story. Okay. A couple of days later, what does Rogan regurgitate in his own way? I never saw anybody die from measles because we're the age where we got vaccinated, you fucking moron. Okay. Like the old Cub Scout motto. Yeah, I was a Cub Scout when I was a kid. Before Boy Scouts and Cub Scouts got all fucked up by the Mormons and the evangelicals. This is many, many moons ago. Long, long time ago in a galaxy far, far away, I was a Cub Scout. We have a slogan, be prepared. That's my slogan tonight. Be prepared. You have a government that's willing to throw everything in the garbage, destroy everything we're used to, literally destroy the economy just to get their way. Because we don't have a government. We have a cult. We have cult members who joined another cult and got into the MAGA cult. Some of these people are multiple deeps in cults. Like the cult behavior of RFK did not start with MAGA or Maha. His cult behavior started 30 years ago. Okay. A lot of the theocratic nationalists, the sects, the Christian, politicized Christian sects you belong to, aren't religions. They're flat out cults like the Moonies or Scientology. Okay. You are to be indoctrinated in bullshit. Then you went, okay, I believe the bullshit, not just the bullshit of the holy books, which is just literature. There's no magic there. Okay. They started believing the politicized bullshit as part of their faith, their alleged faith. Because I don't think many Americans, especially American Christians, I think the supermajority doesn't have any faith at all in Jesus Christ. None. Zero. They have faith in the political structure in America around Christianity. They want to be a member of the club. One day I'll be as rich as Joel Osteen, and I too will not let the homeless sleep in the church when there's a storm. I mean, Joel Osteen is one of the worst son of a bitches in our society. He's right up there with Ed Copeland. He's another bastard. But be prepared because people are not thinking for themselves. Some people have no ability to think for themselves, and they're showing it. Like if you just watch several of the kids in your kids' public school die of measles, and then you go, no, I'm not going to vaccinate my kids either, not just for measles, but I'm going to listen to RFK and I'm not going to vax for a whole list of things. Okay. So you're willing to let your kid die so you can be proud of your cult membership. You're willing to bankrupt America, bankrupt the economy, bankrupt morally, bankrupt us ethically, destroy any faith left in any institution in the country just so you could reinforce your membership in a cult. And it is a fucking cult by definition. When you dismiss reality to stay in your hyper group, your hyper isolated group, you are in fact in a cult. And it's amazing because I grew up in the 70s where, holy shit, was there a cult problem in America? Oh my God, cults were everywhere. You couldn't shake a fucking stick and not hit somebody in a cult in the 70s. I swear to Christ. But this is like Spawn Ranch taken nationwide. And it's being led by a guy, a drug addict, a heroin addict, a steroid abuser, and a brainworm victim, and his daddy, who is a convicted felon, an adjudicated racist, a suspected pedophile, and a goddamn crook. Be prepared. Figure out your path to getting, and thank you for being here, because I think I am trying to give you objectively true information. Okay. The video of Copeland and Erica Kay's eyes, they both look demonic. That is so true. Um, I had a really dark humor joke with my wife the other night. I said, whatever you do, Tanya, when I die, um, don't wear sequins. I said the fireworks are fine, but don't wear sequins. Yeah, she's psycho. She's as psycho as the rest of them because she's just replaced uh Charles Kirk um as the stage performer. And that's all it is. It's performance theater. Okay. Like I love how people try to tell me that Kirk was this great debater. He was an ambusher. He never collegiately debated anybody and came out ahead. Go back and look at when he went to Oxford, right? Like, why the fuck would you invite him to an elite school? I don't know, but somebody invited him and he ended up in an actual collegiate debate where he got his fucking head handed to him over and over and over and over and over. Same thing would happen if you put RFK on a panel with real doctors. Real doctors that aren't under his control or in his orbit. Like one of my friends in the neighborhood, he's an MD, and he just looks in the direction of America and just starts shaking his head like, "Ah, my God, what an idiot!" I'm sorry, not a doctor, a pharmacist. They're like, they don't care. MAGA, Maha, the whole cult of nationalism does not care. They have a predetermined agenda to rule by any means necessary. Okay, because one of the things that scare me about Venezuela and the whole hemispheric concert tour they want to take through a bunch of countries with the military is this is all just softening the ground to deploy units like Delta Force on U.S. soil to go after political dissidents, to go after people who criticize the regime. Okay, eventually they're going to stop suing people and they're just going to kill them. Why? Because that's what every other fucking dictator in the 20th century did. And as far as I can tell, the 20th century dictator playbook is the playbook they're following. Okay. So once again, the solution out of this is voting. The midterm, that's our Normandy of our generation. If we don't take the midterms and we aren't successful, we lose America. The same way if the Rangers would have failed and the engineers would have failed on Omaha Beach, Europe would have been prisoners for a lifetime. That's how dire the midterms are. Vote. Don't tell me you're going to vote. Get your ass out of your chair and get up and vote. If you're disabled, you're in a nursing home, get somebody to do a drop off delivery for you or do an absentee ballot. Hope says, worried about our children. I'm worried about our children and I'm terrified about our grandchildren. My children all have master's degrees. They're all well educated. They do not have the opportunities even I had. They definitely don't have the opportunities my parents had. I'm afraid there's going to be nothing left for eventually who would be my grandchildren. Don't have any grandchildren yet, but hopefully. Yeah. I'm not just worried for our children. I'm worried for the next generation after our children. That's how quickly we're going downhill. Okay? Be independent. Vote independent. Run for local office as an independent. Go out and find candidates you can ask salient questions and get cogent answers. Know your three issues. Know the details of the issues. When they bullshit you, you challenge them right there. And it's not that a candidate should agree with your position. That's a cop out. That's bullshit. I want to know the working mechanism you plan to deliver in Congress as the solution to the fucking problem. Okay. We got one more shot at saving the country, or we will be closer to gangster Russia than the United States of America after the midterms. Because if we lose the midterms, there's nothing they will not do. Nothing. We will have cemented in a nationalist regime where they will handpick their successors. Amy says, yes, no more band-aids. Could not agree more, ma'am. Could not agree more. Fuck your band-aids. I need real solutions. Work ties to healthcare obviously don't fucking work. Come up with a goddamn actuary table that comes up and covers Americans when they get sick. The same way France does it, the same way Australia does it, Japan, New Zealand, Malaysia, Singapore, Denmark, Norway, Sweden, Finland, Britain. We're the only ones that don't do it. So yes, don't give me another damn Band-Aid. I want a real solution. Okay. And I'll leave you with this tonight. You know what the real solution is for our budget and our long term debt? Taxing billionaires the way we used to. I told you, my formative days in the army, in the military, the paramilitary, I was most closely aligned to what's called an Eisenhower Republican. Okay, we need Eisenhower's tax system back because we tax the living shit out of corporations, banks, and wealthy families. Okay. Oh, and when Elizabeth Warren or another sellout tells you that, oh, we'll just steal their fixed assets, that's not a tax system. That's Mother Russia gone wild. Okay. We don't need to steal people's fixed asset. We simply need to tax the income and the gains that they're currently not paying any taxes on. I mean, the Panama Papers, all the other papers that got dumped 10, 12 years ago, they told you all this. It was there in black and fucking white. They're just hiding the money and not paying taxes. When they leaked the IRS packets, the ultra wealthy, all the way up to the richest man in the world, Elon Musk, doesn't pay his fucking taxes. Amy says, Scott Galloway says they pay about 6%. Yeah, on average, that's the wealthy. The ultra wealthy pay about 2 to 3%, about half the 6. Yeah. The wealthy pay 6. The ultra wealthy pay even less. Musk, Zuckerberg, Ellison, they're paying even less. Their rate should be whatever rate we pay. And I'm going to tell you once again, start asking candidates about a flat tax. Literally take the 4,000 page tax code, light it on fire, put the ashes into the burn pit, write a 5-page tax code. Everybody in the country pays 18, 19, whatever the math says, 18%. Okay. Including Ellison, Zuckerberg, Gates, Ellison. You all pay the same money. Okay. You make a dollar, you pay 18, 19%. And that's all inclusive. You don't pay FICA anymore. Okay. You working middle class, we pay just like everybody pays the same thing. One big fixed amount, which actually, if you're a middle class, couple like my wife and I, that cuts our taxes in half. Okay. It increases the ultra wealthy's taxes by 6 or 7-fold. I'm sorry, 8 or 9-fold. Okay. They pay nothing relatively right now. Okay. And when you burn the tax code, you burned all the giveaways. Those automatically go away. The carried interest deduction that allows property developers like Dear Leader Porn Star Humper to literally decide when they're going to pay their taxes over a 7-year period and cook their books to show losses where they need them to minimize their tax. No, 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 fuck off. Did you earn $1? You owe the government 19 cents. Did you make that dollar in a paycheck? 19 cents. Did you make it selling a business? 19 cents. Did you make it selling a stock or a bond or a debenture note? 19 cents. Did you get a $53 million payday from Tesla? 19 cents on every dollar for $53 billion. And I told you this before. If he would have gotten that payday, thankfully the Delaware judge shot it down because it was just stealing from the investors. His taxes for Social Security would have stopped at $167,600. 99.99% of his paycheck would have been not taxable under FICA. Then they want to tell you you can't afford Social Security. It's a fucking actuary table. You have to fund the actuary table to get the results of the actuary table. And this is what's starting to scare the shit out of me about Trump and the nationalists. They're literally attacking the insurance model itself. They're attacking underwriting. Look at their shit with the healthcare insurance. Oh, The evil insurance companies are the ones that took away your health care. So we're going to give you $2,000 and you're going to put it into a health savings account, and that's going to pay for your accident. My accident was $252,000 for 1 week of care at the hospital. How is $2,000 going to cover that? They're literally telling you we're going to take away the insurance model, give you a stipend one time, and that's supposed to cover you for the rest of your life for any possible medical problem. Okay. That's attacking underwriting insurance at its core. And they're doing the same thing for housing insurance. Beware. Beware. Okay. I know we don't run a capitalist economy anymore. We haven't since Reagan. I wrote that essay, American Dream was assassinated in 1978. We've been a corporate socialist society since 1981 under Reagan. Okay. But capitalism, or this bastardized version, corporate socialism, neither can survive without an insurance market. We need insurance and reinsurance, and we need the mechanisms: bankruptcy, receivership, and liquidation. If we don't have these things, insurance, reinsurance, bankruptcy, liquidation, receivership, we don't have an economy. Our only other choice is anarchy or communism. And since these guys have so many commie proclivities, because they all love Putin and Orban, who are both commies. This is what bugs me about Venezuela. Well, we had to go get Maduro because he's a commie. So is Orban. He's a gangster commie, but a commie nonetheless. So is Putin. Again, gangster commie, new form of commie, but commie nonetheless. And these idiots are going to the heart of reinsurance and insurance and trying to tell you that's the problem, not the political fuckery they manufactured. And the only reason they are not going to fix healthcare on the far right side is because if you think the $4.2 trillion debt hole they created with a big, beautiful bill is the last tax cut they're going to give themselves, wait. As soon as we lose the midterms, they will pass another tax break. And it'll be far greater than $4 trillion of benefits to put in their own pockets. Be independent. Vote independent. Run for local office independent. Get your friends and family on board. Not voting is not a fucking option at this juncture. It is the only mechanism we have. I know all the faults about a democratic republic. Still doesn't negate the fact that our only outlet to change this system right now is winning the midterms. All the courts can do is slow these fuckers down. They've proven they can't stop them. Congress is unwilling. Congress is completely within their rights to completely stop everything Trump is doing. What have they done? Besides forcing the release of the Epstein files, which the administration's not going to listen to anyways. Pam Bondi told you she had the Epstein files on her desk. I'm sorry, ma'am. How does one review 5.2 million pages of files? Thousands of USB sticks, CDs, and DVDs with nude pictures of little girls on them? How was all of that on your desk, and how did you review that in the first few weeks of your tenure as Attorney General? You lying bitch. You lying Nazi bitch. They will do anything to hide the Epstein files and somehow get you to forget, even though there's enough documentation out already that shows what? Again, I'll repeat it. Dear Leader Pornstar Humper isn't in the Epstein files per se. He is the Epstein files. That's why we're going through all of this shit. But we have to fix it. And the only chance to fix it is the midterms. And don't be selfish about fixing it. I mean, fixing the entire country, even the dumb parts of the country, the rural red counties that voted him in without a care. Okay. We can't afford Nebraska going fucking bankrupt. Okay. Texas and Florida are some of the largest economies on planet Earth. Hey, we're kicking your ass here in California. We're number 4 worldwide now. Okay. We just passed Japan. Okay. But do I want to see the economy of Texas, the center of 21st century manufacturing, get in trouble or go under? No, that's going to hurt my fellow countrymen. I don't want to see that. Even if they were an asshole next last election, I still don't want to see it. Yeah, I know Ron DeSantis is a frickin' tool. I know Florida man is a cultural problem. Do I want to see my countrymen in dire straits, in harm's way? No, I do not. That's not how you build a prosperous, peaceful society. And I'm old enough to remember that the big mantra in this fucker used to be peace and prosperity. I'd like to see some of that back in like real soon. Hope says but we must keep sharing the Epstein posts, and it distracts and upsets MAGA more than us. Yes, it does. That's an absolutely true statement. Okay, and yes, don't back off. Okay, I'm certainly not on my Substack, not on my Blue Sky. I'm full throttle. Okay, he doesn't like being called a dictator. He doesn't like being called a pedophile. Remind him he's both. He lies and he says he didn't fuck Stormy Daniels and he tried to fuck Jessica Drake, another hottie blonde porn star. He did. That's evidence in the record. That's why I call him Dear Leader Porn Star Humper. Family values. The guy's been married fucking so many times. His current wife's, if you ask any New York detective, I'm not making this allegation, but many people have made the allegation that Melania's a hooker. Hard K. Hooker. Okay. Family values. No, you fuck porn stars and you rape little girls. That's the information we have on the table. So yes, Hope, absolutely. Share those Epstein posts. Share those political cartoons. Share. I know some of you don't like AI. I get it. Okay. I use it every day. I run my own systems here. I can run entire AI systems on my super ultra performance workstations right here or downstairs on my hypervisor, my giant server. Okay. I've been making political renders left and right. I'm making political cartoons. I am going to keep ramming it in their face every fucking time. When some asshole gets on my YouTube, I bounce all these videos and the AI cuts them up and throws them out to shorts on YouTube. I get some right-wing tool on my YouTube account. I just tell them to shut the fuck up. Either bring some data, but if you're just here to lick Kyle Rittenhouse's balls, I don't have any time for you. And when they say they're not a fan of Kyle Rittenhouse, I tell them he's one of your cult leaders. You're a simp to Kyle Rittenhouse, the illegal child soldier who was driven to a riot by his mommy. So yeah, don't let off the gas. Okay. Go for fifth gear. That's what I'm saying. Don't back off. Don't do anything but keep the pressure on to the midterms. Okay. That's excellent advice. But what's our goal? Vote, vote, vote. We need to vote. Our family needs to vote. Our friends need to vote. If we have a 42% turnout like we did in 2022, which is fucking abysmal compared to other countries, I talked about that in the last video, we're in trouble. Okay. Lose the midterms, we lose America. That's an unequivocal statement. And I'm not just jumping and flailing my arms here. I'm telling you, they're emboldened in all the wrong ways. Get to the point where we can handle the situation and get the people who have the checks and balances in Congress that can make this bullshit stop. Repeal the fucking tax code that gives them $4 trillion in handouts. fix the War Powers Act. The only thing standing up right now is the Administrative Procedures Act. I talked about that in the first story. The APA is about the only thing that's standing strong right now. Not much else. They will find a end run around the APA. And if they do, then we're back to Nixon. And Nixon had no guardrails to what he could do. The guardrails that we know today are all because of the post-Nixon era. Yeah. So I'll be back online tomorrow. I got a bunch of work tomorrow. I got to start building a cluster for a client tomorrow, a data cluster. Have a lot of the VMs parked, the virtual machines that's got to start spinning stuff up. So I'm thinking later tomorrow night, I'll get back online. We'll talk about some more stuff. But please share the clips. Please talk openly online, in real life, the works. Get involved in a campaign that you trust with a candidate that's willing to go to the mat for the working middle class and the working poor, because we're being abandoned. Okay. Be independent. Vote independent. Run for office for local independent. Get out there and make a political statement from a cogent point of view, from a rational place in our society. Please, begging you. Until next time, again, please think about it. Peace.